Hey guys, there has been another update. We've got a new announcement coming out. So this has just landed on my server 49001. The breakdown on what servers it's available for is not available in game. However, it is available on their Discord. And as per the official Discord's game news patch notes, these updates are available for server 1, 19,001, 19,002, 20,001, 29,001, 30,001, 49,001 and 49,002. I'm going to start putting all of the latest patch notes whenever they hit on the Discord for the game news specifically onto my website on the homepage, and I'll be showing which servers they affect. They will of course roll onto the other servers, one of the main servers being 40,001 and 40,002. You will get these updates, just not quite yet. So you can still use this as information to prepare in advance, so you get a bit of notice. That's some upside at least. So let's get started, shall we? This has already happened, so going offline, we've got 100 diamonds, that's all nice. The main thing that this patch introduced is 4 new legendary heroes, an achievement system, and a Hall of Honor system. They've also made some changes to Lord skill bonuses when you awaken Lord, so they get an extra benefit when awakened, and they're introducing a second version of the Battle Pass. They had one over Christmas, I believe, called the Gold Dragon Pass. This is Season 2. And let's start with that. So you can see this will last from March 8th, so in 4 days time, and it will finish on April 6th. It seems that this time the main rewards are an exclusive avatar, some mythic gear, some legendary summons, stuff like that. And then moving on, we have 4 new heroes. We have legendary Apsan. He is of the Star Piercers, a ranged fighter. Basic attack hits 1 enemy and can hit airborne. Ultimate, every 2 basic attacks will trigger piercing javelin, penetrating 2 enemies, dealing 100% damage. Airborne units take 150% damage. So this seems to be a AoE airborne focused hero. At the moment, I think most airborne focused heroes don't do AoE damage very well, so perhaps this will be a stronger Nyx. Deadly Assault penetrates 3 enemies and deals up to 500% damage, and airborne units take up to 700% damage. So yeah, again, seems to be some kind of AoE effect specifically targeting airborne enemies. Battle Spirit every 40 to 30 seconds deals extra damage, equal to 15 to 25% attack for 10 to 15 seconds. So the uptime is around 40%, which is usually what we're seeing with a lot of heroes. Their talents tend to have an uptime of near 40%. Glory Recalled, upon being deployed, triggers piercing javelin for every basic attack, lasting for 15 to 25 seconds. It's quite strong, just so you can start off with this piercing javelin effect. So this is an evolvable effect. Penetrates 2 enemies and deals 80 to 100% damage. Airborne units take up to 150%, and this evolves with the hero's promotion progress. So in its final form, it can deal 100% damage to 2 enemies at once, and airborne units take 150. So this is kind of the final part you see here. So this having 3 parts to it, it seems to be a new progression model for heroes. So yeah, that is Apsan, a Star Piercer. Seems to be fairly strong. Lots of focus on hitting multiple enemies at the same time with massive bonus damage to airborne units. This will probably be a very, very powerful hero for Gear Raid 3, especially when they introduce the extra stages, which we are still waiting on. Gear Raids 1 and 2 have new stages, stages 19 to 21, but we don't have that for Gear Raid 3, and when we do, I imagine Apsan is going to be an absolute beast there. Next, we have Valeria. This is a single target fighter for the Nightmare Council, more fighters for the Nightmare Council. Deals damage to 1 enemy with a basic attack. The ultimate increases attack and defense as HP drops, so scaling attack and defense off of missing HP, and when your HP drops to 50%, the increase peaks at 30%. So ideally you want to keep her at 50% HP to gain a bonus 30% attack and defense. Blood Infusion, when activated, damage bonus of 60 to 80%, and each attack consumes 10% of the current HP and generates 1 stack of Power of the Sword, stacking up to 10 times. Skill lasts for 18 seconds, during which the hero cannot be healed. When the skill ends, deal 400 to 440 burst damage to the main target and 4 targets around him. Seems very strong. So you gain a massive damage bonus, and when it ends you do quite a big burst of damage to up to 5 targets as well, which is quite strong. One thing to note with this, it says each attack consumes 10% of the current HP. So it's current HP, so it's not as daunting as it sounds. It's not 10 attacks and you're dead. The lower health you have, the less it will cost you to attack. So this isn't just going to murder you, it's scaling on your current HP, not your max HP. So Power of the Sword, this is the thing that can stack up to 10 times and that you get when Blood Infusion is activated. Each stack of Power of the Sword increases your burst damage by 40% to the main target after the skill ends. So this seems to just be referring back to Blood Infusion. So each stack of Power of the Sword increases the burst damage to the main target by 40%. So at 10 stacks, it's 400% bonus damage, which means at the end of Blood Infusion, if you have 10 stacks, so basically you've made 10 attacks within 18 seconds, your burst damage will potentially at the ceiling be 840% to the main target and 440 to the up to 4 targets around them. So that's quite a high burst damage. It's not insane, personally. I think Salazar still takes the cake on just massacring a single target, but it's actually quite good. That seems pretty strong. Okay, one thing to clarify, because I was just confused. Ultimate talent, I believe, is referring to the talent, and blood infusion, I'm guessing, is the actual ultimate. So I don't know why they call it ultimate talent. I think that's a talent, and this is the ultimate. So activating your ultimate will turn on blood infusion. You'll build stacks of power of the sword, and when blood infusion runs out after 18 seconds, based on the number of stacks of power of the sword, you do a heap of damage to the main target, and you do some decent damage to the targets around them. Cool, so then we have the actual passives. Plunging Slash, 240 to 300% damage to one enemy every 20 seconds, and increases the physical damage they take by 20% for 5 seconds. During the ultimate skill, each attack reduces cooldown by 2 to 3 seconds. So at max skill, you're going to need to make around 7 attacks to reset the cooldown of your Plunging Slash, during which we will of course reduce the cooldown passively. So maybe attack speed will be quite good on this hero. It'll be interesting to see how that scales and how that works out. Will of Steel, once HP drops below 40%, restores 2 to 6% HP per second. During the ultimate skill, HP recovery is suspended, enters unyielding upon taking fatal damage, and dies immediately when the state ends. Can be triggered once at most upon each deployment. So that means you can do it many times per battle. It's just you can't in any way keep the character alive using someone like Lily, I assume, to then have it trigger again. So I think it will only trigger once. One thing I'm uncertain about is it says once the state ends, but we don't know how long this is. From what I can see, it doesn't actually have a duration. So it says you restore 2 to 6% HP per second, but I don't see how long it lasts. Because it says during the ultimate skill, HP is suspended. That seems like a separate note. So I don't think this is tied to your ultimate. This seems to just be a general passive, but it doesn't say how long this actually lasts for. And we don't know how long your unyielding state lasts, because the unyielding down here is just defining it for us, which is nice to see. They're just saying a state in which the hero cannot be killed. So yeah, we don't know how long Will of Steel lasts. But overall, Valeria seems fairly interesting. She's another fairly tanky fighter. She has some self-sustain potential, and she has a way to persist after taking fatal damage. Though she still does die, I just don't know how long she's unyielding for. I think unyielding is usually 3 to 4 seconds, but I don't know, it could be anything really. So outside of it, Plunging Slash seems to be pretty good. Applying increased physical damage as a debuff is actually really powerful. I think heroes that can actually debuff and help the rest of your team tend to be very good. Something I'm interested in is she is another Nightmare Council hero, another single target fighter. She could be very good and boost some more guild boss teams, because at the moment Infernal faction is pretty much dominant, with the Piercer faction being second and then the Nightmare faction. The Piercer faction's requirement is a lot higher. You kind of do need to have a Raka as a lord alongside a Calypso and a Setram, and ideally a Silas now, whereas the Nightmare faction is way more attainable using Wrath as a lord, using heroes like Abomination and Salazar and Volker and Arrogant. You can have a very strong team. Adding someone like Valeria into the mix will make it easier to get the attack speed scaling from the Lord, as well as now having a really good debuff. The bonus physical damage taken debuff is going to help quite a lot. So, moving on, we have Legendary Brokier. So this guy, from what I saw from the teaser art, he seemed just to be a reskin, a recolor of Azhor, pretty much exactly down to the... It looked like he had the same hammer and shield, just blue. So he is also a defender role tank for the North Throne faction. Basic attack just deals damage to one enemy. His talent reduces the damage dealt to allies around him by 10%, so that's quite nice. Just any adjacent allies will take 10% less damage. A very nice, just flat effect, very powerful. And it increases the damage reduction by 30% when the hero is frozen. Frost Armor freezes the hero and grants him a shield of 80 to 120% max HP during the state. Unfreezes the hero when the shield is gone. I think this is kind of another hero to help people out with Gear Raid 2. You just need some amazing shielding to get through there, and the North Throne faction has some very good shields, and they get a lot of benefits on it using someone like Isolde, the current fusion hero, or of course King Haas if you're lucky enough to pull him. So I think this is going to be another hero that you're going to really, really want for Gear Raid 2. So far, he seems incredible for Gear Raid 2. So Frost Armor was his ultimate. Now let's look at his two passives. Freezing Breath. Taking damage grants him 10 to 15% chance to freeze 2 enemies in range for 1 second. The chance will be increased by 20% when the hero is frozen. I am not too keen on freezing enemies for 1 second. It's not bad. It's just not very long. The freezes in this game, the CCs are very short. I think it's just to avoid cheese where you can infinitely freeze enemies. So maybe this will be good. In conjunction with Gwendolyn, it's potentially a lot of freeze going on. But yeah, it would be interesting to test, especially those two together. And finally, Iceberg. When the hero takes fatal damage for the first time, he gets frozen and becomes immune to all damage for 8 to 12 seconds. Frozen implies he won't be able to act, but he does get damage reduction bonus. But even then, in Iceberg, he's immune to damage anyway. He'll still be blocking, I assume. So this is definitely a hero you want to stick the Olag's Wall artifact on, in my opinion, just to give him extra block, so he can just hold more enemies in place, though perhaps that's not necessary. In general, Brokier seems actually pretty good. He seems a lot more useful than his brother Azhor. This one actually has some very good damage reduction, which is going to be amazing for Gear Raid 2. He has some incredible shielding, which I believe is just on himself from the wording. But again, that will make him a lot better at surviving during Gear Raid 2's massive shriek damage in stages 19 to 21. The ability to freeze enemies is not the worst. There's actually some very heavy hitting enemies in Gear Raid 2 and maybe in future content. And his iceberg seems incredibly good. One thing we don't know is iceberg doesn't specify if it is once per combat or once per deployment, so it'll be interesting to find that out. Moving on, we have the legendary Magnus for the Nightmare Council, a crowd fighter, so more of an AoE focused hero. Basic attack deals damage to one enemy. The talent gains Magma Burst every 8 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Magma Burst, the next basic attack or retribution, deals 125% additional AoE damage to the target and up to 3 units around the target, consuming 1 stack after triggering the effect. So the talent, every 8 seconds you get to do this 3 times. Basically, you get 3 times of dealing 125% bonus AoE damage to the target and up to 3 targets around them. Lava Flow, I believe, is the ultimate. I think Magma Burst was just to help us understand the talent. So Lava Flow turns the ground around into flowing lava that deals 60 to 70% damage to the enemy on it every second. So I think this will probably be all adjacent tiles, and although 70% sounds low, it's not that bad, honestly, because it is AoE damage. And during the effect, block value +2 and max HP +80 to 100%, skill lasting for 12 to 15 seconds. The max HP increase is colossal. The block value is amazing as well, but this is a fighter, so I find it very interesting that the fighter they've introduced once again kind of steps over the defender's territory. However, now it's a fighter that can block 4 enemies and has a massive amount of potential HP. We don't know what the base rate of HP is. It's probably nowhere near Abomination, but 100% bonus HP will probably make them have more HP than Abomination does, and does pretty good AoE damage every second around them. And 15 seconds is quite a long time to have this much AoE damage down on the ground, so I'm quite interested in this. This seems like a fairly strong hero. Anyway, let's move on to the rest because we're still missing the 2 passives. Retribution has a 25 to 35% chance to launch an attack on one enemy in the basic attack range when taking damage, inflicting 20% physical vulnerability for 5 seconds. Because this one says physical damage they take by 20%, and this one says physical vulnerability. So I'm assuming it's the same thing, but it would be nice if they use the same terminology because it might not be the same. But I think we can assume it's probably the same thing. And this effect can be triggered only once every 8 to 5 seconds. So this seems very strong to me, Retribution. And since it says launch an attack, I'm assuming you can make a Magma Burst as that attack, so you can trigger and do an AoE attack. And finally, Hellborn. When HP is above 80%, the hero gains 15 to 25% total damage reduction. And when HP is below 80%, the hero deals 15 to 25% extra damage. Not really sure how you play around that. To me personally, I kind of always want to focus on damage for fighters over being tanky. So you wouldn't really want to build them with too much HP, but yet then this hero also buffs their own max HP, making it harder to get underneath the 80% threshold. So that's kind of interesting how that works. It seems like the kind of fighter you would use in place of a defender so that you can do a bit more damage. Initially I thought Gear Raid 1, but these attacks don't specify they do magic damage currently. So it is magma, this lava stuff. So maybe it is magic damage. We'll have to see when we get the character in the game. That is all 4 of the new heroes we've just covered, and they're not in the gallery at the moment. I think they're supposed to be, so I think it might be a little bug. Hopefully they'll be added pretty soon. So that covers it. Overall, from the 4 new heroes, I actually think Brokir is one of the more interesting ones. Especially if you're looking to progress in Gear Raid 2, you really need something like this to grant more shielding and to have some ways of surviving the massive damage coming out. I think Valeria has some potential to be a very good guild boss slayer alongside Salazar. They could be a real dream team, especially with the physical damage of 20%, and the unyielding state can be very helpful as well. And I think Apsan is going to be really, really good in airborne stages and probably a beast in arena as well, though I think Valeria will also be crazy good in single target arena. So I think the first 2, personally Apsan and Valeria, I think are probably going to be the strongest ones. Magnus may be better than I think. It's just fighters focused on AoE damage. It really depends if it does magical damage or not. If it's just standard damage or if it's piercing damage, it's not quite as useful. If this is magic damage that this Magnus is doing, potentially could be very good, but it's kind of hard to get a feel for at the moment. And Broker, I think, will probably become very staple in Gear Raid 2. So all 4 of them seem to have uses, but I think the first 2 especially are ones to watch out for. Okay, so moving on to the hero adjustments. We have the legendary lords, all of them here. So you can see for King Haas, this is the awakening bonus for duplicates. So this is something that you're not really going to get to, but hey, you've got to encourage whaling, right? So if you can awaken your legendary lords to awakening 2, rather than getting flat stats, you actually get a bonus. I actually kind of agree with this. I think it's cool that the legendary lords have a little bit extra in their toolkit because they are supposed to be lords after all. So King Haas, rather than just gaining flat 1200 HP, he is actually increasing the faction members' shields so long as he is in the party. I don't think he probably doesn't have to be deployed for this, but you do have to have him in the party. For Toreador, instead of getting 300 flat attack, faction members gain 20 attack speed. Morrigan, instead of getting 5% attack, faction members gain an extra 5% AoE damage. Araka, instead of 300 flat attack, faction members deal bonus damage to airborne units by 5%. And Venoma, instead of 5% attack, faction members gain 5% penetration. And Twin Fiend, 5% attack to crit damage of 8% for allies in the faction. So pretty interesting overall, pretty good, nothing crazy, but pretty good. I quite like King Haas's because it just makes Gear Raid 2 easier, but to be honest, if you have King Haas, Gear Raid 2 shouldn't be too hard anyway. But the rest of them are all pretty standard, increases in line with their factions. So I quite like this. It feels quite flavorful. It's nothing game breaking. It's quite nice, and good luck to the whales that are after that. And you can see there's been some changes to Theowin. He is the epic fusion marksman. So they have increased his ultimate, his skill burst damage. The damage over time effect has been increased from the range of 35 to 50 on skill ups to 85 to 100%. So the damage over time is much higher, but they have increased the rage cap from starting at 1,000 to starting at 1,200, and from max level being down to 800 to 1,000 instead. So overall, it's pushed the rage cap up by about 200 on either end. I'm not quite sure if that's a good thing. You kind of want as much uptime as possible. It dealing more damage is probably helpful for newer players, but for later players who are using him in arena, you probably just want as much uptime as possible on this for the slow. So I'm interested to hear from people who use Theowin a lot what they think of this change. Do let me know. And one of the biggest changes we got is the achievements and Hall of Honor. So they've added the achievement section, and if you tap on your avatar, you can view your achievements, which we'll go over just now because I haven't actually gone to there at all yet. The achievements are divided into a raid, collection progress, development progress, and game progress and events. You get rewards and honor medals after achievements are completed, and a bunch of these are not going to be retroactive, so some things won't be already counted for, some things will, such as harvesting a certain number of dragon blood from guild boss hasn't been backdated, so we're going to have to collect that all again. Pulling certain heroes and stuff like that, performing certain purchases from the Dwarven Association. It's just they weren't tracking it back then, obviously. Certain things they were probably aware of, and other things they probably thought of since they decided on this system, so that's to be expected. They're not going to have complete 2020 vision. And they've added the Hall of Honor. You can tap your avatar to open the interface and view all owned medals in there, or display some of the medals in the player profile. And they have optimized the display of the player profile, added a bio and a showcase of honor medals. They've added 2 new sets of Bangle, Amulet and Ring, which can be attained through Gear Raid 2. And they've optimized gear filtering. So as you can see, there's a bunch of optimizations to how you can sell and filter your gear. These are all pretty good quality of life changes, so I'm a big fan of these. A lot of these were ones that were requested when they asked for our feedback a while ago. So they definitely do take our feedback on board, and it's really great to see these changes, so thanks a bunch for those. And in the stages, they seem to have added another Spectral Rift, this time to Chapter 8 of Normal, so these seem to be things that they're dropping in the chapter campaign throughout. Hopefully we'll get some of the hard and expert variants, because the normal ones aren't really much challenge for the current player base. So hopefully we get some variants of those and some more interesting stages to beat. They've adjusted the difficulty of some gear raids and artifact material raids. I would like to know what that means, if it's easier or harder. And they've adjusted the difficulty of some of the trial stages in faction trial, except for the basic trial. Arena has been optimized so you can now see the awakening levels of heroes in teams, which is really nice because I keep getting screwed on this. I fight a team of a similar power, but their Salazar is awakened 5 because they spent a bit of money and I'm just screwed. So I'm glad to see that's in there. That's a lovely change. They've adjusted the HP in the arena for players with higher BP. Again, I'd rather they just say increased or reduced. I don't know what adjusted means. I always assume the worst. That tends to be accurate. And they balanced some of the difficulties regarding the group DPS stage. And finally, we have a whole list of other changes. So now in the Pantheon, this was the change that people asked for. You can upgrade and downgrade the insignias used to upgrade your Pantheon. So this is something we've been after for quite a while. So this will help a lot with progression. So you don't have to waste all the green ones when you go to the blue tier. They have lowered the fusion requirements. I saw this briefly. I think it's now 3-star rather than 4-star. So if you're new or even mid-level, definitely fuse those heroes. They are very useful. Lightlot, Theowin, and Livian. They are all really quite helpful heroes. I would like them to expand this pool, but it's a really nice change to just help new players out and help beginning players out a bit more. They've increased the quality of the gear in the black market, which I've already seen. I'll show you that in a second. So that's going over all the changes. I'll show you the bits that I can now. So if we go to the Dwarven Association, you can see I now have... whoops. So that's something to bear in mind. I now have some legendary items in store, and I can buy them and sell them. Don't buy them for the sake of it, but basically I tick this on, do not remind me when purchasing with gold, because I buy these all the time, the top fodders. But if you have that ticked on, you will also just be buying random equipment when you click on them. So let's turn that off, and if you click on them, you can't actually see what the item is, which I think is fair. At the moment, I'm choosing to buy all of the red ones. I am seeing myth gear drop in mine. I am very far in the game though. I don't know when the bracketing is of when you start to see them. More commonly though, I am seeing these legendary ones. But overall, a pretty good change. I'm glad they finally did this, because for the longest time the Dwarven Association was just garbage. And then lastly, they have updated the player profile. So if you click up here, you can see the player profile. This is showing a hero showcase, and I can add honor medals here. As you can see, I've not got any yet because I've not gone to the achievement section and picked anything up. So let's have a look at some of the ones I've already achieved, some of the other ones, and some of the best ones you might want to aim for if there's some interesting things to go for. So Master Summoner, summon 2,000 times in total. I can claim that and get 2 legendary summoning crystals, which is really nice. Harvest Dragon Blood from the guild boss Nightmare Free in one go. This is pretty much if you're clearing Nightmare 3 with a strong team, aiming towards Nightmare 4, I believe. 20,000, this is basically, you know, you're clearing Nightmare 4. 100 friends, this is because I get a lot of people adding me from YouTube, so happy to have you guys. I always try and make space. Obtain 300 stars in normal campaign. I'm guessing this is completing all of the campaign mission. So those are my recently achieved ones apparently. In progress, I need to reach commander level 100. That's going to take forever. Sign in for 365 days. Okay, this must be a fresh start one. 666, okay, interesting choice there. Group Elite, complete 500 individual quests of the guild. I've only got 3, so again, this must be not tracking backdated. Again, not tracking, this is just claiming rewards from guild boss, and summoning in total, it was tracked, fortunately. And that's a huge amount to get. 10 legendary crystals, but 10,000 summons is monstrous as well. And moving on to raid challenges, the first one, Campaign Conqueror, obtain 300 stars in campaign stages hard. Again, I think this is completing everything in hard. Tide Wave 100, this is not too hard to do. 125 is the real tricky one. Reach Overlord in Arena, again, it's getting harder now. There are a lot of stronger players emerging. I'm actually having a bit more hard time in Arena. Not too long ago, I was easy in the top 5. Now I'm struggling to stay in the top 20. Dragon Slayer 3. Harvest 30,000 in one go. Okay, I've been actually really slacking with this. I probably could aim for it, but ever since I hit 20k in the final reward, I've not bothered. So this is cool. This gives me a reason. This motivates me to try to optimize my team, because honestly, as soon as I hit 20k, I just ignored Guild Boss and just let it auto every day. But now I can give this a go. It'll be interesting to push for 30k. I think at the moment my record is like 25k, and clearing Gear Raid 21 of any Gear Raid, I could probably clear Gear Raid 221 if I gave it a try. Of 2 Gear Raids, I can't do that at the moment, because that's at the moment only Gear Raid 1 and 2, and 1 is really hard. I did get the Zealous artifact, but I haven't tried it yet. I don't think that's going to be enough for me to clear this, but I will give it a go. Hey look, no players on our server have done both of them yet, because no one has even cleared stage 20. I like this a lot. I think this is awesome. It gives us things to work towards. It's great that they showed the progress of the players on the server, so I like this a lot. Collection, own 1 epic hero, awaken 5, yep. And own a plus 25 mythic artifact. So this is basically max leveled your artifact, so you've given it 5 dupes. Own 1 legendary orange hero of awaken 5. I've got Gwendolyn at awaken 4, that's the closest I have at the moment. I don't have any more, unfortunately. So if I go to my player profile, I can now add some medals. I can add this medal. I think is that the only medal I can add? So yeah, I like these changes. I think they're really cool. It's great that we can have some more customization of our player profile. There's a bio here. And we can just set a nice little message, so I'll just set that for now. And yeah, I like it. I think this is a great idea. I love the achievement system. I think it's awesome that we have something to work towards now. It definitely gives me motivation to try a bit harder in Guild Boss. So lovely changes there. That pretty much covers what we can go over that I'm aware of. There's been some quite nice quality of life changes that they've chucked into the game. There's a bigger sell button at the top, and now you can see the filtering for gear is much better. I can hide enhanced gear, I can hide locked gear, and it just makes it a lot easier for me to do stuff. So I think they've done some really good quality of life changes. I think that is one of the strengths of Watcher of Realms. The quality of life does improve quite regularly, and that is quite drastic. They don't seem to be shy. They don't seem to shy away from making big changes to their UI, so I definitely applaud the developers on that one. Overall, I think it's a pretty good patch. It's some very nice quality of life. They're definitely ramping up for their global release. There's a lot of small things that have kind of been niggling and bothering some of the older players that they have been attacking and solving with this patch. Obviously, a bunch of our other issues are still unsolved. We're still missing some late game content, but I think these are generally really good changes to have. The other thing to show is this one. This is the being able to assemble and dismantle gear so that you can get more. I'm holding off on doing the dismantling from the higher bracket down to the second bracket, because I don't know when I get to the third bracket if I can assemble up at the same rate that I can dismantle. So until I know that, I'm kind of hesitant, because at the moment it costs a 4:1 ratio to assemble and a 1:2 ratio to dismantle. So I'm not going to be dismantling at the moment. I'll wait until you guys tell me if it's okay. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. I have a bunch more information coming out soon. Do check my website, mybucket.com, as I have actually put a load of updates on there, and you can expect to see a new tier list video soon, as well as an artifact tier list as well. Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. Take care, and bye-bye.